So, I grew up as a strange child, you might say. I'm not sure when it started. I could actually have been born with it for all I know, since from my first memories onward, I remember seeing those things. You could call them ghosts, spirits, or maybe even monsters. Some are human, others not so much. I think you could put them in 3 categories. The normal ones who just walk around not bothering anyone. The malicious ones mostly look like either dead people or people who have lost their human forms completely, who are always on the lookout for living beings that notice them. And then there's the 3rd category. Those I like to call the evil ones. But more on that later. When I was a small child, my parents still thought those were just my imaginary friends, I guess. Mom told me stories of sitting in a room, talking to someone who wasn't there, but having this eerily realistic, one-sided conversation that, as she admitted later, already freaked her out. I don't fully remember it, I have to admit. After trying therapy and quite a few other things to unlock those memories, all I can really get are those glimpses or fragments from when I was not even 5 years old. I think it was an old woman who visited me in my room back then. She had this crooked back, a walking cane, and a scarf covering her hair, and I called her Auntie. I guess I should call myself lucky that it was her visiting me and not something else, though. As far as I remember, she wasn't too bad. At least I don't think I had many nightmares while she was around. What we talked about, I can't say. Those memories are far too early to get back fully, and honestly, I don't think I would even like to know. What could a small child and an old lady even talk about? She probably was just lonely. Many of them are. Only they all handle it differently. And I have to admit, I now see the almost funny side in my mother claiming that I freaked her out even back then. Because talking with old ladies she couldn't see was by far the most peaceful period in my life. I remember kindergarten. The first time I really left my parents' embrace and got sent out into the world on my own. That was when my life took a turn for the worse, and when my memories started to form and really stick. Well, stress can do that, right? I remember the playground next to the building where we had our recess. Stepping out of the door the first time, watching the other kids running toward it, and me, standing there, frozen. My new friends were racing over the lawn, splitting up, heading everywhere. But all I could see, all I could concentrate on, was this towering figure right in the middle of the playground, watching each and every one of them. I think it was the first time I saw one of them, the non-human looking ones. And it freaked me out. I still remember that sight so clearly since it seared itself into my mind. The figure wasn't wearing normal clothing, but a floor-length, dark monk's habit. Its 4 arms were at its sides, its neck was at least 3 feet long and thick, and the head at the end looked almost more like a worm's than a human's. There were eyes everywhere, blinking, darting back and forth, following the children. I think I peed my pants, then started screaming and crying while I pointed at the thing standing there. Half a dozen of its eyes turned toward me at that moment. The teacher came over to me and asked me what was wrong, but I wouldn't have been able to tell them even if I had tried. All I could do was scream at the thing, and with every passing second, more and more eyes fell on me. Not just from the children, but also from the monster. It turned ever so slightly, and I remember almost passing out right then and there. The 4 arms were moving, 3 of them raised up. I remember feeling this big, warm hand on my shoulder, then jumping as I saw the thing take a single step toward me. It was coming. That was all I could think about. This single thought consumed my mind, and I screamed and pushed the hand off my shoulder as I whirled around and ran back into the building. I remember feeling this dread, like cold fingers reaching out from behind me, brushing past my neck. The door flew inward, and I ran. Past the normal room, away from the stairs leading up. I couldn't think straight. All I could concentrate on was getting away from here, away from the monster that had looked at me. I remember seeing the sign to the toilets, running toward them, and slipping inside without another scream. Even in my panic, I knew that shouting would draw this thing in, that it would follow any noise I would make. Inside the restroom, I ran past the first 2 stalls, jumped into the third, locked the door behind me, then climbed up on the toilet seat so no one would be able to see my feet on the floor. I was kneeling on the seat, holding onto the back wall, trembling and shaking, feeling the cold fear of death for the first time in my young life. Footsteps were coming closer. It wasn't just a monster that was after me, but also the teacher. Parts of me wanted to call out to them, to scream for help, but I knew deep down that it would also bring this thing closer. It had noticed that I could see it, just like Auntie. She had warned me, I thought back then, as I shivered on the toilet seat, my cold and sweaty hands slipping on the slick tiles of the wall. I remember focusing on the lines in front of my eyes. My heart was beating so fast, I thought I might collapse any second now. And then, when I woke up, I would be staring at that monstrosity towering above me. That thought made it even worse. My legs were shaking so badly, I knew I wouldn't be able to run anymore. I was hyperventilating, whimpering while I forced my mouth to stay shut. Someone reached the door to the toilet, pushed it open. For a moment, I thought it was over. I remember my vision getting blurry, then dark, my body swaying, then almost falling. As suddenly, right in my back, the door got pushed open. The scream I let out echoed around the small room. But instead of the monster, what grabbed me was my teacher. He held me as if he believed me. Well, thinking back now, I doubt he had any idea of what had happened. And all he saw was a child frightened to death. It doesn't matter, does it? I held on to him while crying and whimpering, pulled back to wipe my eyes, and completely lost control. There, above the wall of the cubicle, I saw it again. This thing from before. It had to lower its head to fit into the room. The almost worm-like top was bent down a bit, but 3 of the countless eyes on its side were staring back at me and blinking. I blacked out, thankfully. Maybe I hit my head, maybe my teacher caught me. I don't know anymore. What I can say for sure is that the monster didn't hurt me. At least not this one. I would guess my teacher carried me out, and they called my parents and an ambulance, because the next thing I do remember seeing was the inside of a hospital room. Mom and Dad were beside themselves. The doctors had no idea what could have happened, and they were running a whole lot of tests on me. But I could see it in my dad's eyes every day he came by that they weren't making any progress. I was kind of happy there, in the hospital, to be honest. After the initial shock, at least. There was no sign of that monster. It hadn't followed me, after all. There still were some strange things going on, but nothing I couldn't handle. The worst were the nurses. Not the normal ones who wore modern scrubs, but those in older clothing. Duller colors, weird patterns. They were easy to spot, and after that disaster of my first day in kindergarten, I now knew what I had to do. Just ignore them. Don't look at them, don't talk to them, treat them as if they were nothing but air. It's easy talking about it now. And I hope I don't make it sound like it was a breeze. Every time one of them walked by the room, or even worse, into it, I would freeze up and lower my eyes. But at least for the first few weeks, none of them seemed to notice me. They did make sure to move around people, but sometimes I could see a normal human just walking through their form, which then spread out like smoke, only to come back together once the physical body was gone. It still bothered my parents, though. I mean, just suddenly lowering my eyes and freezing up for no apparent reason. Of course, I tried to tell some people, those who treated me nicely, but all of them just seemed to take my stories as a symptom of a disease I knew I didn't have. Well, I learned back then that if people don't believe you, you won't be able to change their minds like that. So I pulled back, got quieter, and to my surprise, the doctors told my parents about some small improvements in my condition. It's almost funny, right? The less I tried to convince them of being healthy, the more they seemed to believe me. Well, of course, they sent in a psychiatrist to check up on me, and luckily, none of the strange nurses appeared during our session. He asked me a bunch of stuff I can't remember anymore, and that first time I even answered truthfully. Somehow I must have thought that someone in such a profession would see that I wasn't lying. As you can imagine, that didn't go well. I got prescribed a whole bunch of meds by him, but all they did was make me drowsy and sleepy all day. The following week blurred together into a single blob. I don't remember waking up or talking at all. Neither food nor my parents seemed important anymore. Sometimes I would wake up and feel something next to me, look over, then fall asleep again. They lowered my dose the following weeks, but it still kept me almost completely out of it. I don't know how or when, but one day I got dressed by Mom, then taken out of the hospital and back home. To be honest, I still kind of resent my parents for that. They pretty much zombified me for years just to keep me quiet. I know. They probably did it out of love, since I didn't get screaming fits anymore, and those night terrors disappeared as well. Yeah, well, the ghosts didn't. That much I know with absolute certainty. Mom homeschooled me from then on, since she didn't want to send me out into the world again in that lethargic state. And to her credit, she did a great job. Even though I couldn't really remember much of those years, I know I retained at least some math skills, history, and stuff like that. Even if I completely lost any kind of creative drive, if I ever even had one. Mom showed me the pictures she had me draw back then, years later. I kind of felt creeped out by them as well. She asked me to draw a self-portrait, and I guess I would have imagined a stick figure at least. But all that was on that white sheet of paper she kept was a single scraggly line right down the middle. There were other examples as well. Drawing a house, just more scribbles. The neighborhood, dots, then red and blue lines running between them. I had to stop her from showing me any more after that, since those pictures somehow started pulling up bad fragments of memories from my subconsciousness. Really awful ones. I must have suffered at that time, but I couldn't remember or communicate. A few years later, she probably couldn't take it anymore either. Mom talked to the doctors and reduced the meds to a minimum, and a few months after that, once I regained at least a bit of my past self, she asked me if I wanted to try and join a real school again. I wasn't sure at first. Part of me still longed for the safety of home, but after those strange years caught up in the fog of the medication, I yearned to experience a normal life again. So I agreed and my parents sent me back to school. I have to say, I was scared the first day when the bus picked me up. In my mind, I could see the same thing from kindergarten repeating, only this time, it might be worse. I kept stealing glances at the other children, then outside the window. Not one of them reacted to the strange people we drove by. Those with missing features, too many eyes, or even horns. At least by that point, I had learned to distinguish between what was normal to see and what wasn't. So I kept my mouth shut, followed the trove of kids into school, and tried to be as normal as someone with my condition could be. Well, my first day was terrifying. Not because of the monsters, but because of how many people were suddenly around me. I think I spotted a handful of ghosts mingling with the children, staying just outside the bigger groups, but following them. And one of the bad ones was there as well. It looked like a young girl with long, dark hair, dripping with water wherever it went. I saw this thing after the first class, standing in the hallways, turning this way and that, looking at the children passing by, then following them a few steps before stopping again. The feeling I got as I watched it was exactly the same that had made me scream in kindergarten. I just knew that it was a bad one, a dangerous being, something that would want to hurt me if it got the chance. I felt my heart pumping blood right into my cheeks, turned away so I could only see it out of the corner of my eye, then almost froze as its gaze from behind this dripping wet curtain of hair fell on me. It noticed me, just like the worm-like thing had. I didn't freeze, but walked to class, sat down, and kept staring at the cheap desk while trying not to show how freaked out I truly was. It didn't help. One of the other kids came in, and behind them, I could see the dark figure slowly walking in as well. My throat closed up as the wet hair brushed past the doorframe. Then the monster stopped and looked around. It was searching for me, but couldn't immediately spot me. I closed my eyes, hoping, praying that it would just leave again. But it didn't. Those things don't make any noise, but I could now feel it so clearly. Dead eyes that were looking at me. A mouth that opened in the darkness. This greed and malice. My fingers almost dug into the cheap table as I sat there. Every muscle tensed up to the extreme. And the thing continued to draw closer and closer. I could hear the teacher clearing his throat, and I knew I had to open my eyes, but part of me just wanted to keep them closed, to jump up and run out the door as quickly as I could. That day, though, I didn't. I knew any chance of a new life would be over if I did, so I opened my eyes and stared straight ahead at the teacher in front of the class. I don't think I heard even a single word he said all lesson. All I could do was concentrate on the thing beside my desk, staring holes into the side of my face from not even 2 inches away. It didn't try to touch me, and I don't know why. Was it not sure if I had seen it? Was it maybe afraid of doing something dangerous? Or maybe it just wanted to make me break. I remember feeling those beads of sweat running down the side of my face, the confused looks my classmates shot me, and the chill, so cold yet searing hot at the same time, growing on my cheek. Do not look at it. Those were the words I repeated back then, over and over again. I don't know how, but I managed to keep staring straight ahead throughout the whole class, even though my body was trembling and I was bathed in sweat by the end of it. The second bell rang, I closed my eyes, jumped up, and then walked out the door. I could feel it following me, yet I didn't dare start to sprint. If it really wasn't sure if I had seen it, running would give it away, I reasoned. That probably was also the first time other kids at school looked at me funny, but I really didn't care back then. The dripping girl with the black hair was still walking behind me. I could feel her gaze on my back now. I reached up to wipe my cheek and found it ice cold. I turned a corner, then another, But that only brought me a few seconds before I could feel this monster's gaze on my back again. This thing wouldn't simply stop following me just because I slowly walked away. Yet, at the same time, if I ran, I would make it much, much worse. I was racking my brain, looking for some way to shake her off. Having this thing right next to my face for the rest of the day would break me down sooner or later. I reached one of the bigger doors, pushed it open, and stumbled outside into the sunlight. The moment the rays hit me, I spotted a bench straight ahead. Maybe this thing wouldn't be able to stand having the sun on it. I tried to tell myself, but I already knew from experience that that didn't matter. My heart was still racing. I was sweating bullets, but I knew I wouldn't be able to run away any longer. I would sit down, wait for a few minutes, and then hurry back inside and hope that I could shake this thing off with a bunch of other kids running to get to class on time. The moment I plopped down on the bench, I felt this spirit appearing from the building, its eyes burning holes into my back again. My hands were shaking, so I held them together as I tried to take a deep, calm breath. If this thing believed I was just having a difficult time in school, maybe it would leave me alone. I was so naive back then. The thing was catching up as I sat there, still waiting for the bell. It would be my sign to get up and run without looking suspicious. This cold chill crawled up and down my spine as the thing reached me, stared at me, then suddenly touched my shoulder. The shock almost made me scream, but I bit my tongue at the last second. It felt like static electricity was running through my skin. I could feel the fingertips moving from my shoulder up toward my neck. It was touching me.
Everything okay?
The voice that suddenly reached me made my head shoot around and look up at the boy standing only a few steps away. He looked maybe a year older than me, had blonde hair and this aura that made me forget everything else for a couple of seconds. My throat was still closed up, so I couldn't answer, but his eyes immediately drew me in further. They had this warmth to them, and the smile he showed made me forget the spirit in my back for a moment. He snipped his fingers, then spoke to me directly again.
You should probably get back to class. The bell's gonna ring soon.
I felt myself nodding, then suddenly realized that I couldn't feel anything on my shoulder anymore, and turned my head. The girl who had followed me was gone. I couldn't say how or why, but she had simply disappeared. This weight got lifted off my chest, and I could finally breathe again as I jumped and looked back at the boy. He was smiling so brightly.
Those things are scary, I know, but don't let them get you down too much.
I couldn't even stammer out an answer. For the first time in my life, someone else had acknowledged those things. There was somebody who didn't think I had gone insane.
I'm Billy, by the way. And don't worry, I know this trick to get rid of those things. Just come find me if they ever give you any trouble.
I was nodding along, then heard the bell ring and whirled around. One last time, I turned toward my savior and saw the boy still smiling.
You should run now. Don't worry about me. I'm free this period, but let's catch up again soon.
I did as he said and ran back inside, now finally no longer followed by that creepy girl. That had been my first normal interaction with someone about my age in years, I thought later. Billy. What a nice name. The rest of the day passed by without another incident. I talked to a few classmates, but most of them didn't want to get too close. Yeah, I had behaved strangely, so rumors were forming, but for once in my life, I really didn't mind. I saw Billy again a few days later, leaning against one of the lockers close to a group of even older kids, and we smiled and nodded at each other. Life was looking up. At least that was what I thought. Not even a week after that, though, I encountered another monster. It had the form of a teacher, old and haggard, with a rope tied into a noose around his neck. He was walking along the hallway, looked in through the small window of the door, and I immediately felt this chill in my bones again. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see him pass through the closed door and come into the room, drawn in by the same thing that had brought the dripping girl to me before. I could hardly concentrate on the teacher up front. My eyes were following the old man with the noose, who now started to walk between the desks, looking down at one child after another. Something in the way the old man moved, dragging one foot behind, his head shifting at unnatural angles, made my whole body shiver. As soon as he was at the front of the class, I jumped up and then ran out of the room. Being stuck in there with this thing breathing down my neck seemed far too dangerous all of a sudden. The teacher said something to me, but I didn't listen. I almost jumped out of the classroom, then started running back down the hallway. But as soon as I turned around to look back, I could see the dead teacher with the noose coming after me. Our eyes met, and I immediately felt this chill in the air. It was speeding up, and I had to turn my head to look in front of me, to not stumble and crash to the floor. My footsteps echoed around the hallway as I turned at the next corner, then raced past a row of lockers. The thing was still on my heels. I could feel it so clearly again. This hate and malice it exuded. Every chance I got, I turned another corner, trying to shake it off as I raced through the school. It didn't work. Wherever I ran, I could feel it. It was following me, tracking me somehow. My lungs started hurting. There was this stinging pain in my side. I would finally find out what something like that would do to me if I got caught, I warned myself. Sweat was running down my back as I turned another corner, then headed back the way I had come. The dead teacher was so close already. This monster was gaining on me. My right foot slipped just as the corner with the locker was coming back up. I lost my balance, fell, slid, and then crashed into one of the walls. Dazed and out of breath, I tried to get back up, but before I could even get my feet back under me, the thing with the noose appeared again. Its eyes were glowing, its mouth was open as if it was hungry, and its hand stretched out toward me. I wouldn't be able to get away. Every single cell in my body cried out. A scream was building inside of me, but before the monster could reach me, before I could shout for help, someone stepped in between my attacker and me. He snapped his fingers, and suddenly the old teacher with the noose around the neck disappeared. Out of breath and terrified, I stared up at my friend, who now had a frown on his face.
You need to be more careful,
he warned, then looked up and down the hallway to make sure nothing else was coming. I still couldn't get up on my feet, collapsed again, my whole body shaking like a leaf in a storm. Billy sat down next to me, kept me company until the bell rang and the people started flooding out from the classrooms. It was the second time he saved my life, but it wouldn't be the last. Following this incident, people started avoiding me. I was the creepy kid on the corner, and that perception of me never really changed. Years passed by, and I pretty much stopped caring. I skipped classes, sometimes school entirely. My parents noticed, but they didn't understand what I was going through, so I blocked them out as well. Billy was there, every time we had a fight, cautioning me to be careful. Otherwise, I might end up in an institution again. I didn't go home until late at night. Sometimes I stayed out until almost dawn, because I couldn't stand the disappointed look in my mother's eyes. I started to turn angry, bitter and spiteful, and it wasn't just down to being a teenager. Billy was there to pick me up anytime I felt alone. As long as he was around, I didn't have to be scared of the monsters following me. He would stay by my side when I skipped classes, because he was bored in school as well. We met up outside, hung around the parks or alleys, talked about everything and nothing at all. It wasn't a happy time at all. Just after I turned 17, I had the biggest fight of my life with my parents. It got so bad that Mum and Dad actually threatened to throw me out of the house. So I grabbed my jacket and just left. I was done with it all, I thought, and I started walking out into the night, leaving the neighborhood behind, then finally sat down when I got to the park close to the bridge. Billy was already waiting there. He was smiling so brightly, greeted me warmly, then asked me what happened. I didn't have to feel alone or abandoned when he was there. He always understood me, he never judged, and would always protect me. We started walking around the park while I cried. There was one almost crow-like being perched in the darkness away from the lamps, but Billy took care of it before I could even mention it. He was my rock, I thought, so I didn't mind following him when he suddenly changed paths and led me out of the park. I remember the cool breeze coming from the river as we walked to the middle of the bridge, then stopped, with Billy jumping up and sitting on the railing before motioning for me to join him. Something inside me was stirring, so I didn't. I don't know what would have happened if I had, but I'm glad that whatever part of me spoke up that night kept me from jumping up onto the railing. Billy's smile wavered, but just for a moment before he laughed out loud, put his head back and stared up into the night sky. That memory has been seared into my mind. Seeing him like that, so carefree and happy.
You could live with me, you know.
He spoke those 7 words without looking at me, and I felt my legs starting to tremble as soon as I heard them.
You wouldn't have to fight anymore.
He promised, then turned his head back down and looked at me from above.
No more parents, no more school. You could be free, like me.
The thought of accepting his offer crossed my mind.
You would finally belong somewhere. Just leave the pain behind.
I knew what he meant. I had known it all along.
Just join me up here. Everything will be okay.
He looked at me with the same smile I had seen so often. But now, at that moment, under the lamps, it suddenly felt different. No longer wholesome and friendly, but like a mask hiding something sinister. I tried to step back, but Billy's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. The electricity surging up my arm told me how angry and desperate he truly was.
You will not survive without me. You know that, right?
I stared up at him, and for the first time, I truly saw Billy for what he really was. He still looked human and not like a monster, but deep inside, he was worse than all the others I had encountered. The reason we were here was that he finally wanted to reap what he had sown.
Just come up here. I promise you. We'll be together from now on.
His touch was turning painful. I tried to pull back my arm, but he kept it in his grasp. Why all those lies? Why the charade? He could have just left me to the other monsters. No, that wouldn't have given him what he was after. He needed me to die, and judging by the way he just held me and didn't drag me, I had to do this myself. I screamed at Billy to let me go and watched the smile on his face turn into a sneer.
You will not survive without me. All the pain will just bring you back here.
He promised, now looking down at me like a bird of prey.
They all hate you. Your parents, your teachers, your classmates, everyone. Not one of them understands what you're going through.
I felt tears shooting into my eyes. He was right, this part of me howled, but I couldn't admit it. I kicked the railing, felt his hand let go, and stumbled backward. One last time I looked up at him. He seemed almost sad, but behind that exterior, I felt the malice, anger, and hunger. I jumped up, raced through the park, and back home. Mum and Dad didn't expect me to come back so soon, I think. They also didn't expect me to break down on the living room floor, begging them to put me away again. I've spent the last decade in this institution. The people are fine, and only some of them seem to be out of place. There was one monster roaming the halls, but after a month of staring at me without me reacting, it disappeared on its own. My biggest problem right now is Billy. I can see him sometimes. He never sets foot on the premises, but he has found me. Most days he stands out there by the gate, looking up at my window, waving at me or just staring back at me silently. Sometimes he looks like the boy that once saved me. Others he passes by in the form of an old man. I think he believes he will win in the end. And I'm not sure if I can call that a delusion anymore. Time is not as much of a problem for him, but life just seems to pass me by. Mum and Dad have stopped visiting me regularly for a few years now, and having something like a human connection in a place like this is hard. I'm thinking of maybe telling the doctor a few more things again, just to get him to up my dose so I can stop feeling for a time. But that will also just delay the inevitable. I think Billy will appear here, in my room soon enough. I can already imagine it, and part of me wants it as well. He will talk to me, charm me, ease the boredom, and sooner or later he will show me a way out. I can't get rid of him so easily, especially if part of me wants to just give in. Is there really no way for me to live? Don't I deserve a chance as well? Please, help me. I don't know how much longer I can go on.